All right, guys, so here's your percent increase and decrease notes. We touched on this a little bit last week with your water toy or Stingray experiment. So we're going to just continue to focus more on that this week. And instead of looking at percents overall, we're really going to focus in on actually the percent increase and decrease of something. So you're going to have a value, it's going to change to a new value, and we want to know by what percent did it increase, not the amount it actually did. So we looked at percent as a ratio of part over whole. We're going to still continue to do that. But in this case, when we're looking at percent increase, decrease, just like we did with the water toy or Stingray experiment, we're going to look at the new. So where is it now compared to the original? And the original is going to be, remember, always going to be the 100, because that's originally how much we started with. It's the original amount. It's 100% of it all. And then the percent that we're going to deal with is going to go up here in this ratio. So we're going to again look at proportions. We're going to be looking at ratios, and we're going to be looking at scale factors. So how are we changing this guy and turn it into 100? It's kind of what you did with the ratio table practice. So let's look at an example of a problem. Daniel's mom agreed to increase his allowance from 20 to 50 if he commits to doing more chores. By what percent allowance would it increase by? So let's look at some key stuff here first. And let's talk about this one right here. By what percent would it increase? So we know that we're increasing because we started at 20. Let me highlight that. And we're going to 50. Now, a very common wrong answer here, and if this was a multiple choice problem, you would see this. And that common wrong answer choice would be 30%. The reason why 30% would be an incorrect answer is because, it did increase by $30. And we can see that. But remember, we're not asking for dollars. We're asking for the percent. So let's look at how we would solve this. So step one is we're going to look at the ratio we just talked about on the last slide. So I'm going to set it up. So I know this is going to be the new over the original. Let me rewrite that. And then this is going to be 100 and the percent. Remember, we're looking for that to help us figure it out. This is a two-step process, okay? Now, let's substitute what we know. Well, we know the original was 20. So where we have original, I'm going to replace with 20. We know the new was 50. So I'm going to replace the new with 50. Okay, so now I know I'm looking for this. All right, so I'm going to look for a scale factor. What can I apply to 20 to make it into 50? What can I apply to 20 to make it into 100? Well, there is a number that we can multiply by 20 to get to 50, but that's a decimal. So let's see if it's easier to go 20 to 100. And I know 20 times 5 gives me 100. So whatever I do on the bottom to stay proportional, I have to do on the top, or whatever I had done over here, I would have it done over here. But since I chose to do times 5, I have to do that on top. So I'm going to ask myself, well, what is 50 times 5? Well, that gives me 250. So my answer up here is 250. So 250% increase would mean that it doubled twice. So let's look at the percent change. Okay, so it is okay to get over 100% because 100% is equal to 1. Well, if I just doubled it, that would give me 200%. So if I doubled his allowance to 200%, that would give me 40. So I increased it by 250%. But really, what it's asking, remember, is what did it increase by? What percent did it increase? So that means I want to know the difference between what it's at now versus where it started. So step 2 is I'm going to take this top number and subtract it from 100. Or if this number was smaller, I would subtract that from 100. So when I subtract those two, it comes out to 150. So my answer is there's a 150% increase. So what that means is that it increased by, we could say, 1.5 times. Again, we're looking for the percent. So let's look at another example. The price of a television was priced at $250 and reduced to $200. By what percent was the cost of the TV reduced? So a little different scenario here because we're asking about a reduction. Okay, so that we can have a percent increase, like the allowance went up from 20 to 50, or we can actually have price goes down. Now, more likely you'll see this in the real world, like at stores, where you have a 50% off sale, or the price has been reduced. So this is what you'll see in real life. So we want to know by what percent was it reduced. Very common wrong answer here, 50%. So remember, 50% means half. So basically, if you said the answer was 50%, what you're saying is that I took half off 250 to give me 200. Not very logical. So make sure you're careful not to just throw up the $50 as your 50%. Okay. So let's set up our ratio. Step 1. New over original equals some number over 100. So let's substitute what we know. So I know that it was originally 250. Okay, so I'm going to put that here. Okay, the new is 200. So different this time because the number on top is going to be smaller than the number on bottom. And that's okay, because it still works. Okay. So I need to figure out now, what do I multiply 250 by or divide by to give me 100? So I'm actually going to show you two ways to solve this. So one way to figure out what we divide 250 by to make 100, and I know I have to divide because I'm going from a bigger number to a smaller number, is that I could just divide 250 by 100. And you can put that in the calculator and you get 2.5. So I know this divided by 2.5 is how I get from 250 to 200. So whatever I do at the bottom, I have to do the top. So now I need to figure out, well, what is 200 divided by 2.5? Okay. And that's going to come out to 80 when you punch it in your calculators. So I know that this number is 80. Now remember, I'm looking for the percent decrease. So we're not taking 80% off the TV. That means that the TV would be pretty close to almost free. Because, I mean, if we took 100% off the cost, it would be free. If we took 80% off the cost, it would be almost free. And we see that it's not almost free. It's only reduced by a small amount. So remember, step 2 is we have to subtract 100 and the number on top. Remember that we want to subtract, so we never want to end up with a negative number, so we always want to subtract the bigger number first, which comes out to 20. So we know the TV was actually 20% off. So I'm actually going to show you another way to solve the exact same problem. So I'm going to set up my ratio, and we know it was 200, 250 equals something, 100 over something. Okay, so let's set up a table to help us maybe try to figure out what we could multiply by to get to 100. So I'm thinking, okay, well, if I have the ratio 200, let me redraw that table. So I have 200 with 250. And remember, I'm trying to make a 100. Well, I could reduce 200 over 250. Let's reduce it by 100. All right, take off the 0. And let me reset up my ratio now. So instead of 200 over 250, I now have 20 over 25. It's still the same ratio because remember, I divided by 100 on both. So now I'm going to know, okay, well, can I turn a 25 into a 400? Or excuse me, into a 100? And I can by multiplying by 4. So sometimes we can use tables to help us solve these proportions. So if we divide or we don't see it right away, we can always try to reduce this ratio to a factor of 100. And we could reduce it even more, right? I could divide it by 5, and that would be down to 4 over 5. 5 times 20. There's lots of ways we could do this. So now that I know that, remember, this is not what I'm looking for. It's not 80% off. It's 20% off. Okay, so what you need to do is use this video to fill in some of the notes that are on the bottom, and then answer the practice question that is attached to this. You will also have a practice tomorrow on this increase and decrease. So just the notes today, practice tomorrow. And then Wednesday and Thursday, you'll have a Math Mad Lib to complete. It'll take you 2 days. And then Friday, we'll have a Quizzes or Kahoot or something. If you got any questions, don't hesitate to contact your teacher. And hope you guys are doing great. And if you need anything, let us know. Thanks.